Hey everyone! Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of the Mesolithic period, also known as the Middle Stone Age. This era is sandwiched between the Upper Paleolithic and the Neolithic periods, and it's a crucial time in our prehistoric journey. So, what exactly was life like in the Mesolithic? Well, the term Mesolithic itself means middle stone in Greek, and it's used to describe the last period of hunter-gatherer cultures in Europe and the Middle East. This period kicked off after the end of the last ice age, around 15,000 years ago, and lasted until about 5,000 years ago in Europe, and from roughly 20,000 to 10,000 years ago in the Middle East. Now, here's where it gets interesting. During the Mesolithic, people started shifting away from hunting large animals in groups. Instead, they adopted a more varied hunter-gatherer lifestyle. They developed more advanced and smaller stone tools and weapons, moving away from the bulky ones used in the Paleolithic era. Some regions even started experimenting with pottery and textiles, although full-blown agriculture was still a thing of the future. Most Mesolithic settlements were located near water sources like seas, rivers, and lakes. This made sense because these areas provided a steady supply of food. Unlike the grand burial mounds of the Neolithic period, Mesolithic societies had simpler burials, reflecting their less complex social structures. The term Mesolithic itself was first introduced in the mid-19th century. There was quite a debate about whether this intermediate period was necessary. Some scholars, like John Evans, argued that the ages blended together seamlessly, while others, like Gabriel de Mortillet, saw a clear gap that needed to be addressed. Over time, more evidence emerged, and the concept of the Mesolithic period became widely accepted. In different regions, you might hear the Mesolithic period referred to as the Epipaleolithic. This term is often used for hunter-gatherer cultures in the Near East that weren't directly succeeded by agricultural societies. In Europe, though, Mesolithic is the go-to term. And there you have it. The Mesolithic period was a time of significant change and development for our ancestors, setting the stage for the agricultural revolution that would come later. And now let's take a trip back to the Mesolithic period in Europe and see what life was like during this fascinating time. In the Balkans, the Mesolithic era began around 15,000 years ago. Over in Western Europe, particularly in the Franco-Cantabrian region of northern Spain and southern France, the early Mesolithic, also known as the Azilian, kicked off around 14,000 years ago. Other parts of Europe saw the Mesolithic period start around 11,500 years ago, coinciding with the beginning of the Holocene. This era lasted until the arrival of farming, which varied by region, wrapping up between 8,500 and 5,500 years ago. As the Ice Age ended, certain regions experienced significant environmental changes, leading to a more pronounced Mesolithic period that lasted for millennia. Northern Europe, for instance, benefited from rich food supplies in the newly formed marshlands, resulting in distinctive cultural behaviors. This is where we see the development of the Maglemosian and Azilian cultures. These rich environments also delayed the advent of the Neolithic period in Northern Europe until around 5,500 years ago. One of the key features of the Mesolithic period was the stone toolkit, specifically the use of microlithic technology. These composite devices were crafted using mode V-chipped stone tools, or microliths, while the Paleolithic relied on modes I4. Interestingly, some regions like Ireland, parts of Portugal, the Isle of Man, and the Tyrrhenian Islands used a macrolithic technology during the Mesolithic. However, as the Neolithic period began, microlithic tools were replaced by macrolithic technology, with polished stone tools like axes becoming more common. There's also evidence of early construction projects with possible ritual or astronomical significance during this time. For example, Stonehenge features a short row of large post holes aligned east-west, and a site in Warrenfield, Scotland, shows what might be a lunar calendar with post holes reflecting the lunar phases, dating back to before 9,000 years ago. A fascinating find from southern Denmark revealed that an ancient piece of chewed birch bark pitch, dating back about 5,700 years, contained traces of hazelnuts and duck, giving us a glimpse into the diet of Mesolithic people. They also influenced Europe's forests by bringing along favored plants like hazel. As the Neolithic package, consisting of farming, herding, polished stone tools, timber longhouses, and pottery, spread across Europe, the Mesolithic lifestyle gradually faded away. Some Mesolithic communities adapted to sedentism, increased population sizes, and plant food usage, showing a transition to agriculture. However, other groups resisted this change, likely due to different ideologies and a preference for their hunter-gatherer ways. In some areas, like the Blatter Hole in Hagen, descendants of Mesolithic people maintained a foraging lifestyle for over 2,000 years even after farming societies emerged nearby. These groups might be referred to as sub-Neolithic. In parts of northeastern Europe, the hunting and fishing lifestyle persisted well into the medieval period, particularly in regions less suited for agriculture. In Scandinavia, the terms Older Stone Age and Younger Stone Age are used instead of Mesolithic, reflecting a continuous cultural evolution. And now let's dive into the artistic and cultural aspects of this fascinating era. Compared to the Upper Paleolithic and the Neolithic periods, there's less surviving art from the Mesolithic. However, the rock art of the Iberian Mediterranean basin is a noteworthy exception. Unlike the famous cave paintings from the Paleolithic, these artworks are found on cliff faces and often depict human figures rather than animals. For example, the Roca dels Moros site features 45 small human figures in various scenes of dancing, fighting, hunting, and gathering food. These figures are smaller and more schematically drawn than the large animals of Paleolithic art, but they are full of energy and movement. In Northern Europe, a few small engraved pendants have been found, including amber pieces from the region and a shale pendant from Starkar in Britain. One of the rare Mesolithic animal carvings is the elk's head of Hoitonen from Finland, made from soapstone. In the Urals, we see similar artistic shifts post-Paleolithic, including the wooden Shidra idol. This impressive sculpture, originally over 5 meters tall, is a plank of larch carved with geometric motifs and topped with a human head. Another notable piece is the Ain Sakri figurine from Palestine, a Nachvian carving in calcite. Starkar in Britain has yielded an interesting find of 33 antler frontlets, red deer skulls modified to be worn by humans. Similar frontlets have been discovered in other parts of Europe, indicating a widespread cultural practice. Weaving techniques were also a part of Mesolithic life, used to create shoes and baskets. In southern Spain's Cueva de los Murciélagos, finely constructed and dyed baskets dating back 9,500 years have been found. In some regions, like northeastern Europe and Siberia, a ceramic Mesolithic can be identified. These cultures produced distinctive pottery between 9,000 and 5,850 years ago, even without adopting farming. This pottery often had point or knob bases and flared rims, and it spread from Lake Baikal in Siberia to the Volga in Russia, eventually reaching the eastern Baltic and northern Europe. Notably, the earliest pottery ever discovered was found in China's Xianrendong cave, dating back 20,000 to 19,000 years ago. These early pottery fragments had scorch marks, suggesting they were used for cooking by mobile foragers long before the advent of agriculture. Interestingly, the concept of the Mesolithic isn't universally applied. In China, sites that might be considered Mesolithic are often classified as early Neolithic. In India, the term Mesolithic is used for the period roughly between 12,000 and 8,000 years ago. In the Americas, a comparable period is known as the Archaic or Meso-Indian period. Lastly, the Saharan rock paintings at Tassili Nature and other locations depict vivid scenes of everyday life in central North Africa. These paintings show a landscape once teeming with water-dependent animals like hippos, providing a stark contrast to the current desert environment. That wraps up our look at the artistic and cultural developments of the Mesolithic period.